Good morning, everyone. My name is Jóhan, and I'm 25 years old, and I'm originally from the Faroe Islands, and I'm married to my wife, Susanna, and we've been going to Lighthouse now for approximately 2 years now. I've been asked this morning to share some thoughts on a verse, and I'm going to share some thoughts on Ephesians 2:19, where it says, "Consequently, you are no longer foreigners and strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people, and also members of his household." Firstly, I'm going to focus on the first part of that verse, where it talks about us being no longer strangers or foreigners, and then I'm going to look at the second part of the verse, talking about being fellow citizens and members of God's household. Some of you may know a bit about my story. I lived in Cambodia in 2012 to 13 for 7 months as my parents moved there to become missionaries. And Cambodian culture is totally different than Faroese culture, which is my culture. So in Cambodia, their language is different, their letters are different, the food, the main religion is different, and also even how people think about, for example, people in power. Cambodians have a deep respect for their monarchy and their prime minister, and moreover, their main industry is agriculture, and the weather is warm and nice, which is also completely different compared to the Faroe Islands, which is a small group of islands in the North Atlantic Ocean. It's cold, we fish a lot, and we are quite similar to other Western countries. So moving to Cambodia was a totally new experience for me. And when I moved there, I remember the locals being very kind and inviting to me. And they really tried to get us to feel welcome there. But however, no matter how kind they were, I still felt like a foreigner. Being from the Faroe Islands is part of my identity. And I reckon even if I lived 30 years in Cambodia, I still would not feel like a Cambodian. Because I'm not Cambodian, I'm from the Faroe Islands, I'm Faroese. So in that verse I just read, Paul uses the word foreigner and stranger. So why does he use those words? Well, this letter was written to a church full of non-Jewish people, or also known as Gentiles, which had converted to Christianity. And some commentaries believe that Jews would sometimes refer to non-Jews as strangers. So the members of Ephesians, they probably knew the feeling well of being a stranger or a foreigner, because they had converted to a religion that was seen belonging to someone else, the Jews, and they were not Jews. And I know a lot of people in our church know how it feels to be a stranger. A lot of you have moved to the UK from a different country, and you probably, from your background, have a totally different culture. And although you might love this country, and you probably also would think that the UK is your home, you probably still don't feel British. And similarly, I can imagine a lot of the Ephesians felt a bit out of place. Maybe they even felt like they didn't even belong, because they were Christians, which was a Jewish religion. So how amazing is it that when Paul writes, "You are no longer foreigners and strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people, and also members of his household." I can imagine the relief the members of the Ephesians church have experienced when Paul proclaimed, "You are fellow citizens, and you are no longer strangers." There's no difference between us and the Jews. Everyone that has put our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ is part of God's family. We all know that feeling of going abroad or going away and then coming back, and that feeling you get when you return, that feeling of feeling at home, you're back where you belong. That is what God is offering everyone, a place where we truly belong. I love that the offer is open to everyone, no matter the culture, language, gender. All humans are created to belong in God's family, and his arms are open for everyone. And moreover, God always seems to take that one extra step than what is expected. Not only does Paul say that we are fellow citizens, so we're equal, but we're also a member of God's household. And that's such an intimate description, isn't it? So what does it look like being a member of God's household? I know from my experience, it means that I can eat food out of the fridge when I want. It means eating dinner with my wife in the evening, or watching football in the living room. Being part of a household means that you are comfortable and you are at home. And God is saying that we are members of His household if we have put our faith in Jesus. And in other verses in the Bible, God even calls us His children. I sometimes think about, if someone saved me from a burning house, then I wouldn't expect anything extra from that person that saved me. Similarly to our situation with God, when we have put our trust in God, He has saved us from eternal damnation. And I wouldn't expect God to give us anything extra than just saving us, because that's more than enough. However, God goes one step further, and He makes us fellow citizens, and He makes us members of His household, and even calls us His children. And what a privilege and blessing that is. I therefore want to leave you with some questions to ponder. How does it affect you? Or how does it affect how you approach God, knowing that He calls you a fellow citizen and a member of His household? And the second question I also want you to think about is, do you feel like you belong in God's family? If yes, why do you think that is? And if no, why do you think that is? I'm praying that this message has been a blessing for you and it has encouraged you. And if you do not feel like you belong in God's household, or if you want to become a part of God's household, then I want to encourage you today to go to prayer after the service. May God bless you.